Thanks, guys. Yeah, when I look at the organization here, what you guys do, not at all what my daily work looks like Monday through Friday. I didn't even know this industry existed, so it's pretty cool to kind of take the tour with Tim. And more than what you guys do, it's what you guys are about, what is so super exciting. So it's awesome to be here to share pizza and just you know get to talk to you guys. So my hope in the next 30 minutes, if I go over, Tim's going to take me to the side. My hope is just that each of us have a story. Each of us are living our life. That you would just find encouragement in kind of my story, and hopefully it relates to you at whatever level. And that, man, you just find purpose and in whatever you do in life. And the purpose that I've found is in Jesus, and I can't think of anything other than Jesus to live my life and make it more purposeful. So I hope that you could take that from my story. So as we're eating, it reminds me of when I first came to the States, came to a small town in South Carolina, and quickly transferred to a school, Lipscomb University in Nashville, and got to know a guy who was from rural, small town Tennessee, and became really good friends with him. He invited me over to his house for Christmas, and his super country dad comes down and asks me, "Hey, did you eat yet?" I'm like, "What the heck is he talking about?" And he asked me a couple times, "Did you eat yet?" And I'm like, I asked my friend, "Hey, what is he asking?" And my friend politely is like, "Hey man, he's just asking, have you had breakfast yet?" And I'm like, "No, sir, I have not jeet yet." Like, I still had no clue that it was short for "did you eat yet?" I'm like, what does jeet yet mean? So as you guys are eating, it just reminds me of just how unique English even can be as you travel across, and just the nuances. So anyways, so I'm originally from India. That's where I grew up. Went to high school there, and even though I was a practicing Sikh, which is a religion that came out of Hinduism. If you know of Hinduism, it's the 5th largest religion in the world, and only about 500 years ago it separated from Hinduism. And even though I would consider myself religiously a Sikh, like my worship and my God was soccer. Like I was a soccer player, and that was it. If there's anything I wanted in this life, was to be a professional soccer player, and I was chasing after that with all my heart. So when I was 17, I got the opportunity to go to England. I played there for 2 years. I couldn't get a work visa. So my coach in England told me, "Hey, why don't you go to the States? They have this thing called NCAA," which when I come here, I'm like, wow, this is really a thing, because some of the NCAA colleges, the sports are bigger than professional sports in other countries, the amount of money that gets pumped into some of these schools. So he's like, "Hey, why don't you go to the States, play NCAA, at least get a free education out of soccer, and then if you're good enough, you'll continue having the opportunity to play." So that sounded like a great idea. And in 2013, I came here to college in South Carolina, and my first week, I got injured, broke my ankle, lost all my scholarships. So everything that I had worked for up until now, just gone in an instant. And I didn't even know who I was, because that was my life. Everything I did was for soccer. So to not have that, I'm trying to figure out who I am. What is career going to look like? What am I even doing in this country? What am I going to study in school? So without a scholarship, that school was going to be pretty expensive. So I knew one person in the United States, which was a girl from back home, back in India, and she was on a tennis scholarship at a school in Nashville called Lipscomb University. I don't know if anyone heard of Lipscomb University. All right. I had not. And this friend of mine left a very important detail out in telling me about Lipscomb, that it was a Christian school. So second semester freshman year, this is January of 2014, she tells me I contact the school, and they have a really good international student scholarship. So I'm basically going to get 50% off because I'm a Indian. So I transfer, pack my 2 suitcases, take a Greyhound from Hartsville, South Carolina to Nashville, Tennessee, and begin this journey of trying to figure out who I'm going to be, right? I'm still trying to find that out today. So I start school at Lipscomb, and slowly I realize what I've been duped into, and find out I have to take Bible classes and go to chapel, 2 or 3 times a week to take credits where you don't get to graduate. I'm like, wow. There's separate boys and girls dorms. So I enter, I went to go see my friend and go into this dorm, and there's an announcement on the, like, ladies are fanning, guy on the 3rd floor. I'm like, where did I, coming from a party school where the room in front of me was, 2 girls and here's 2 guys. I mean, it was just crazy party school to like conservative Church of Christ school that no drinking, you're gonna get kicked out. So it was a pretty big culture shock while I'm trying to yet understand all these phrases, that trying to so it was a really difficult time in my life. Is everything I knew is changing around me. And pretty quickly I realized a theme. I'm one of the few people on a Christian campus that is not a Christian. So I quickly became a walking target for all these Christians that everybody was fighting, man, who's gonna dunk this guy? Like, who's gonna dunk this guy and bring him to Christ? So, and that was a struggle for me. I'm not I quickly realized, like, I'd be in conversations with people and they're telling me about Jesus and quickly telling me I'm going to hell because I don't believe in him. And it became, so not only was I struggling with trying to figure out what I'm gonna do in life without soccer and being in Nashville, Tennessee at a Christian school, but also now wrestling with my faith, because people would ask me questions and I realized I'd never really thought about my faith intellectually, right? It was just something I was born into and I believed in until I met people who didn't believe in that and believed in something else. And so everything felt like it was shaking and I didn't know who I was. So thankfully, my Bible professor, my friend told me, hey, there's this guy named Rob Touchstone, and he started a nonprofit coffee shop, super awesome guy. So my friend's telling me you should take him for your Bible class because he's not gonna shove Jesus down your throat and try to convert you. I'm like, and he's an easy A. Great. All I need right now from a Bible class is an easy A, so I'm gonna take him. So I take this guy as my Bible professor and start to learn about who Jesus is and Paul is and Peter is. I'd never read the Bible. And while I'm going through this, I still had no money to go to school. So if you're on an international student visa, there's a lot of government regulations, and one of them is you cannot work more than 20 hours a week, and it has to be on campus. Well, on-campus jobs were paying like $6.85, and I could, I still had no money to go to school because I was relying on a full ride to go, get a scholarship, play soccer. Since those plans were in the drain, like I had to figure out how I'm gonna eat, how I'm gonna pay for my school. So I decide I'm gonna work 20 hours a week on campus, but I'm also gonna bust tables at a Chinese restaurant getting paid under the table because that was the best thing I could do to just survive and get free food. So I started doing that, and quickly Lipscomb found out that I was working off campus, and I get a letter in the mail. Lipscomb goes and tells Homeland Security that I was doing that, so I got a letter in the mail without even my international advisor person telling me about what she had done. And the letter basically said I had 30 days to leave the country or I'd be an illegal immigrant. So after going through a lot of hardship, and struggling with a lot of things, now I'm also struggling with even maintaining my status here, and I basically have to have 30 days to figure out what the heck I'm gonna do. So Rob Touchstone, that Bible professor that wasn't gonna shove Jesus down my throat, which he didn't, found out about my situation and what I was going through, and he would talk about the Well, which is, again, a coffee shop, and they sell all their coffee and give it away to drill wells in Africa. So if you're ever in Nashville, you should check out Well Coffee House. And this guy would also do a Sunday morning, he would just show up with a Bible, and whoever's there, he'd just say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're just gonna worship the Lord and read from the scriptures. And if you're here working or whatever you're doing, you could continue to do that. If you wanna join us, you're welcome. So he kind of just brought Jesus to people that were in a coffee shop on a Sunday morning instead of taking them to church, which I thought it was pretty intriguing. So I checked out the Well. He got to know him a little bit, and he found out what I was going through. So basically this community of like 15 people paid for the best immigration lawyer for me, And the immigration lawyer basically called me and said, like, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years. If you basically, try to appeal your case with the government, they're gonna just kick you out. So there's this loophole. If you wanna try it, a lot of people are scared, they don't wanna try it, but in my opinion, you have nothing to lose. So I'm like, okay, what's the loophole? She said, in these 30 days, your only option to stay in the United States is for you to leave the country. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. She said, leave the country and try to come back from a minor port of entry. So don't, fly to India and fly in from JFK, but basically drive to San Diego or fly to San Diego and drive into Mexico and try to come back. So, in legal terms, what I had done had revoked my visa, and the only way to reset it is to come back. The catch is, when I try to come back, the border people are smart enough to know what the heck was going on, and either they put me in a Mexican prison or deport me back to India. So those were my chances. The third chance is if their systems aren't updated enough, which is why she wanted me to go through a minor port of entry. If their systems weren't updated enough, there may be a slight chance that they don't figure out what you've done and they let you in. I'm like, this is crazy. What am I gonna do? Like, my parents have no idea. So I packed my bags again. Instead of taking a Greyhound this time, thankfully, California is a little further. A Greyhound to California would be miserable if you ever, traveled through Greyhound. So I flew to San Diego, said all my goodbyes, because I have no idea if I'm gonna be able to come back or be stuck in a Mexican prison or knock at my parents' door in India, hey, sorry, been deported. So I fly to Mexico, spend 3 days there. So how I went there is Rob, again, found 3 guys. And if you believe in coincidences, I don't know how you live this life, because, man, so this guy finds 3 guys from his church who are going to Mexico through San Diego, and we're going on my last day of my final exam, found out about my story, were willing to take me and pay for it all. So it's a pretty sweet deal. So I tagged along with these guys, went to Mexico. On the way back, probably the most stressful car ride I've ever been in. If you can imagine, you're about to go to the border, and whoever the guy is gets to decide your fate. Like, what's gonna happen to my life? Like, am I gonna go back to school? Which, if I do, I still don't know how I'm gonna pay for my school, but I was gonna figure that out later. So I go up to the line, it takes us about an hour to get up there. Well, the Americans show the awesome American passport and they go right through. It's my turn. I give him the passport. He punches in numbers and he gets out this yellow piece of paper, writes, needs new I-94. And I'm like, crap. The dude knows exactly what I did and so I'm like, okay, I've been caught. Like, this is it, the end of the road. He says, hey, go to that guy who looked even more mean, looked like he was having the worst day of his life, which I don't know why border security people always look like that. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with them. So I go to this guy, and he starts asking me questions. Hey, what do you study at Lipscomb? Why are you here in Mexico? So I kind of tell him. Thankfully, I was going to a Christian school, so I was like, hey, I'm actually here on a mission trip, which was true, because these 3 guys were there on a mission trip. So I had a good alibi for me to be there. So he asks me a few more questions, and then the dude goes silent for it was just like 20, 25 minutes. I mean, I don't know how long I've been talking, but could you imagine if you and I were just sitting here and I am silent for like 20 minutes? Pretty awkward, man. I don't know if you guys have experienced awkward situations. That was my awkward situation. I'm like, I don't know what am I supposed to say, but this lawyer that had sent me was magical. She was like, hey, there might be a time where this border security guy is going to be silent, because they use silence as a technique when they don't have enough information to get information out of you. I'm like thinking about all these detective movies. I'm like, okay. So she said, what I need you to do is when they ask you a question, you answer everything truthfully. If they don't ask you anything, just shut your mouth. Just shut up. Don't talk. And just don't, the person who breaks the silence loses in this situation. I was like, okay. So because I knew that, I'm like, dude, I will stand here all night. I'm not saying no word. So this is almost like a challenge, Iron Man. When are you going to talk? Because I'm not talking. And I think after a while, I don't know if he was playing solitaire on his computer, he finally gave up. He's like, all right, man, go back to that line. So I went back to another line, make my way up after 2 hours to this other guy. Anyways, they tossed me around because all they were trying to do is buy time to figure out. Because if the government doesn't have evidence on you of what you've done, they can't just like put me in prison or just not like deport me. So they were looking, they knew something was wrong. They didn't know what it was. And like the lawyer assumed, their systems weren't updated enough because it was still pretty close to the letter in the mail, that their systems weren't telling them why I got the letter in the mail. So after they bounced me around, one guy just, I think, felt pity on me and got tired of looking at me go to all these different places and just like stamps my passport and just he's like, "Ah, man, you're good to go." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, I didn't say that to him, that'd be pretty dumb. But I started walking and I'm like, man, somebody's gonna come catch me, some, San Diego PD or whatever they are. So anyways, somehow I still to this day don't understand this loophole. And I tell every international kid, man, don't go down that path. Don't work under, get paid under the table. I come back and what blows my mind is this community that in the past 3 months that just stood by me. I felt like I had 15 moms at this coffee shop. Like only my mom would go that far. Only my mom would go find the best freaking lawyer, pay for everything and take care of me so well. Like how could a group of strangers do that for me? That made no sense. And I don't know if you've dealt with many Indians in your life. We're pretty frugal people. You want to get a deal, you go to an Indian, right? And in India, like my mom was the principal of a K through 12 school. My dad was in the army. So I had relationships and I would always guess, man, what does this person want from me? Do they want a kid to be admitted in my mom's school, or they want a cheaper liquor from the army store? Or like, what do they want from me? Why are they trying to be my friend? That's how you live your life. Because there's this transactional relationship that happens until I show up at this nonprofit coffee shop in Nashville, Tennessee, and I can't figure these people out. Because I'm a broke college kid from India who's trying to figure out how am I going to even pay for my school. So what is it that these people want from me? And man, they just wanted me to know the love of Jesus. And they could have sat me down and they could have read the Bible to me. And there were people that read that and it would probably have never made the same impact than them just living their life and loving me the way they did. And I never experienced that. And I don't know any of your stories. I bet each of you have experiences, whether positive or negative, with Christians. I know there's a lot of people have negative experiences with Christians. I was one of them, like the people that are sending me to hell without even knowing who I was or my story. I was pretty pushed away. But then meeting this group of people that just loved the heck out of me, I had no box to put these people in. Like I couldn't understand them. And here's the crazy thing. So like you guys work on trucks, right? You guys, I would say some of you are experts, maybe some of you are learning. But if I asked you, hey, who's the best freaking guy who works on these trucks? Like, let me learn from him. Like I bet that person would be able to teach me a lot of cool things. I wouldn't know anything about fixing trucks, but if I want to get into this business, right, I need to learn from you guys. So, man, I wanted to, like everybody's doing something. You're in this job, I was wanting to go play soccer because you want a fulfilling life. You want to enjoy your life, right? Who doesn't want to enjoy their life? Anyone? Nobody. Like everybody wants to have a joyful, fulfilling life. So as you think of like, hey, how do I learn fixing trucks, man? I saw these people. Everybody has this desire to live a fulfilling life. And I had found the people that were living the fulfilling life, that were living a joyful life. So I was like, whatever these guys have, I want it. And that's my plea to you is like, man, if you're struggling through life, if you had bad experiences, whatever, man, if you know somebody here that's just freaking joyful, just talk to them. Just like if you see somebody really good at fixing trucks, you're going to go to them and say, hey, teach me, how'd you do this? Man, life is just so short to waste away. If you see somebody in this crowd, right, you're going to work with them all the time, or anyone in your life that you're like, man, this guy's crushing life right now. Just go and check it out. Like, what is it that makes them joyful? And that was I didn't have these words back then, but that's what attracted me to these people. So I start hanging out with this group of people at this coffee shop. I get invited to this like Tuesday night Bible study where ironically they ate pizza every Tuesday. I got so sick of Jet's pizza, it's unreal. I still can't eat it because I ate it so much at that Tuesday night Bible study. And we just eat pizza and talk about Jesus, and they'd worship and pray. And I kid you not, one time after going there a few weeks, I'm like, man, do I really want to do this? Like, all Christians do is like sing, pray, and like talk to each other. Like, none of those that I like. I hate singing. I hate reading. Like, what is, do I really want to that be my life? But it wasn't all of those little things they did. It again went back to, man, they were living a life that I truly desired. And it wasn't dependent on the circumstances or the hardships. Like, some of these people were freaking more joyful when hard things were happening. And I'm like, man, help me understand this. Like, and it's because they had hope in this life that I didn't have. They had hope in something that I didn't have. Because the thing that I put my hope in was in one night gone when I broke my ankle. That was my hope. And it got taken away from me. And what was the most awesome thing about these Christians were the thing they were putting hope in could never be taken away from them. And they lived like that. And so I started hanging out with these people. A month goes by, and I'm sitting one night. I'll never forget. It was June 11th, 2014. So January, I came to Lipscomb. May, I did my whole trip to Mexico. And June 11th, I'm sitting. I will never forget this day until I die. Because I'm sitting there, and we're eating pizza at this dining table, and there's about like 10, 12 of us, and I didn't have a car, praise the Lord, because I would have left that night if I had a car. But I carpooled with these 3 guys from Lipscomb, and we're sitting and eating and talking. And somebody would start talking, so Tim starts talking, and man, it becomes about Jesus. And somebody else stops talking, it becomes about Jesus. Gabe said something else, it then again becomes about Jesus. And I'm just going, man, there's billions of people in this world. Are these people just dumb? Like, do these Christians just think they have the golden key to heaven? And everybody else, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, they're all stupid people just going to hell? So I'm just struggling. You get the point, right? I'm struggling to see why Christians think they have the golden ticket to heaven. And why does it always have to be about Jesus? And what happens to my granddad that just passed away that never got the chance to learn about Jesus? What happens to him? You telling me he's going to hell? So pretty tough questions that I'm still trying to figure it out. So I'm having these questions, and I'm like, when friends of mine in India who are better soccer players than me were being sent to coaching classes to be either doctor or engineer, my parents sent me to England. When things in England didn't work out, my parents sent me to the States because they freaking believed in me. And that's so hard to find in India. Like, parents are like, man, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to own a Subway in America, you're going to own a Subway in America. They have your path set out for you, and you can't deter from that. But my parents believed in what I wanted to do and supported me. So how could I just say, hey, this is what you taught me, and you know what, I'm just going to follow this guy, Jesus. Like, that would be, and how I explain it is, in India, it's a very honor-shame society. In America, it's like, Tim, your granddaughter comes to you and says, Granddaddy, I want to be an artist. What are you going to say? Heck yeah. In India, get slapped in the face and get thrown into the engineering classes, right? It's because being an artist doesn't pay you in India. So that's just the mentality. So it's a pretty big deal to say, you have 2 options growing up, right? You either always bring honor to your family by the decisions you make, or you bring shame on them. And it's pretty clear the things that do either of those. So I'm struggling with this whole thing at this Tuesday night Bible study, everybody talking about Jesus, wrestling with these deep theological questions. You did that? Is my time up? Yeah, you have a button in your... So as I'm struggling with this, for some reason, whatever it was, I made a decision. I want nothing to do with these people, to do with Jesus, to do with Christianity. I want out. I cannot do this to my family. I can't betray them like this. I can't disappoint my parents. And no one could convince me. Like, nobody could read a Bible verse or tell me about a story. It was like, in my mind, I had made the decision, man, I don't care, you were the biggest theologian of your time. Like, you couldn't sit me down and just convince me. I was so done. I couldn't do this to my parents who had put so much faith in me. So I just sit there and I wait. Like, if these guys could just take me back to my dorm. So I'm so visibly checked out that I leave the living room and I stand by the front door, so obviously wanting to get out of that place. And as these people are about to leave, I'm about to leave, there's a Bible verse written on this lady, Becky, whose house it was, and she did this Bible study thing. There's a Bible verse from Isaiah 43 that says, I have called you by name, you're mine. Like, whatever, it's a Bible verse. I'm just get me out of here. I want nothing to do with these people. And so these three guys walk out the front door. I'm about to walk out, and somebody touched me on my tricep. I was like, first I thought it was her dog licking me, so I looked up the steps, the front steps that went upstairs. There was no dog. I looked at Becky, and I haven't said a word in 30 minutes. I just want to get out of this place. And I looked at Becky and I said, hey, Becky, was there a big mosquito behind me? No idea why a mosquito. And Becky's response is, he's calling you by your name and you can't ignore it. I want to slap that woman in the face. I'm like, why are you screwing this up? Because I made up my mind, right? And I don't know what to say. So I sit back in the car and I'm driving back to Lipscomb's campus. And yeah, I had no idea. Again, just like I didn't have a box to put these people in, now the God that they had been following had just showed up in my life, and I didn't know what the heck to do with it. And, you know, the crazy thing to me was Jesus touched me. The crazier thing to me was somehow Becky knew he touched me. How the heck did she know? All I asked her was, there a big mosquito behind me? There's a simple answer to that. Yes or no. It's not even an open-ended question. And as I'm driving and I'm thinking about this, what was even crazier than Becky knowing it was that on the day that I was willing to give up everything and I was willing to ignore everything and deny everything about Jesus was the day he was literally holding me, not letting me go. And that's the God I get to serve today. And man, I still didn't know what to do because, okay, Jesus is real. I was convinced as I'll ever be that this person is not just a historic figure talked about in the Bible. This guy's real. But so are my parents. They're real. They're in India. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I do nothing. A month goes by, and I make no decision because I'm paralyzed with fear. Like, okay, yes, I believe Jesus is real. I and my parents. So I'm like in this battle of like choosing between my Jesus and my family. And it's a tough decision. I don't know if you've had to make decisions like that where you have to choose one or the other. So after 4 weeks, I haven't really talked to any of these Christians because I know what they're going to say. One day on a Sunday, I'm like, I'm just going to go to the well on a Sunday morning because Rob's going to be there and just going to sit there and spectate. So I go. Rob is teaching from John chapter 9. If you've heard the story or haven't heard the story, it's the story of Jesus healing the blind guy. Jesus spits in the mud, tells this blind guy to put it on his eyes. The blind guy puts it on his eyes, and he's been blind from birth. He's like mid-30s, mid-40s, and middle-aged man. And for the first time in his life, the known city's blind man can now see. So it causes a lot of confusion in the city. Pharisees find out, and the Pharisees come up to the blind guy, and they start interrogating him because they're pretty pissy about Jesus doing this on a Sabbath. So they're interrogating Jesus, and finally they ask the blind guy, yo, blind guy, all we want to know is this guy Jesus, is he a sinner or not? And the blind guy's response in verse 25 is, I don't know if he's a sinner. Well, first he gets pretty quirky with them. He's like, wow, you want to be his disciples too? But then his response to the Pharisees is, hey, I don't know if he's a sinner. All I know is I couldn't see, and now I see. That's all that was his testimony, right? That's what was his experience of Jesus. And that verse just hit me. Man, I didn't know where Nashville, Tennessee was on the map or what the heck Lipscomb University was or what I still hadn't read the Bible. I couldn't tell you about any of the disciples or anything about Jesus. All I had known is 4 weeks ago, he showed up and he gave me eyes to see him. And all I wanted to do was follow him. So I went to Rob and I said, hey man, I want to get baptized, but I want to do it next week. Because I wanted to be so sure this is not an emotional decision. Oh, cool, I'm the blind guy, let's go get baptized. Like, I wanted because it was going to cost me too much to just make a half-hearted decision. So I was either going to be all in, either follow Jesus with everything I have till I die, or want nothing to do with this because the cost was too much to give up. I didn't know what my family was going to do, my parents were going to do. So I gave myself 1 week and Satan 1 week. The last week I said, if anything, convince me out of this. Like, this is the last week. And man, neither me or Satan could convince me out of it. All I wanted to do was follow Jesus. So in July of 2014, I gave my life to Jesus. And it was I don't know how many years it's been, 7 years, 8 years. It's the best decision of my life. And I am so thankful for, I don't know, there's people in this room that probably know Jesus, don't know Jesus. One thing is just, man, seeing people live out the gospel was the best thing I'd ever experienced. I could have gone to a church and a Sunday school or whatever, read about it. I don't know, I was talking to Gabe. It is so cool to see something lived out, right? If all you did was read books on how to fix fire trucks, that'd be pretty lame. And you never fixed any trucks, right? How many people do you know that, man, they're so amazing at reading the Bible, but they never fixed the trucks? And I was so thankful to have met people that actually lived a life of love that I had no idea what to do with, and eventually it led me to following Jesus. And so I appreciate you guys letting me come here, speak to you. It's been a joy. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, happy to stick around and share. So thanks, guys.
Any questions?
How did your parents respond?
That's the first question every time. And I don't know why, because I leave it out of the story. And every time, first like, so what the heck happened to your parents? Like, you've been building this up. So I had two options. I was like, either, and I was trying to decide, either in that last week of my trying to decide, I was like, either I can tell them now, and they're like, heck no, and I still disobey them, or I go follow Jesus, like get baptized, and then I tell them everything I just told you guys. So I chose the second option because I didn't want to deliberately like disobey them, but because I knew what their response was going to be. So July 8th, the next morning that I woke up, I got out my laptop and wrote an email. I didn't have the courage to call them. I wrote a huge long email of basically everything that I just told you and said, man, this is what just happened in the past 6 months of my life. And all I wanted to do was follow Jesus. And my dad's response was, son, if you think this is God and this is the path he wants you to be on, follow it with all your heart. And my mom shut down. She didn't talk to me for like 8 weeks. And it was really, really hard. And it's a whole other story of why she felt that. And but to answer your question, like they didn't just chastise me and like cut me off. They didn't have the most enthusiastic response. My dad had that response, which later, 2 months later, I found out my dad was in an affair. And he was accepting this part of my life. So 2 months later, I could accept that part of his life. So I later found that out of why he responded like that, which is really hard in that moment. But today, I mean, I wouldn't, they're pretty glad because I didn't go start selling drugs, you know, like my life, even on the outside, in their eyes, it's like, all right, this guy is doing good in his life or trying to do good and help. Like, to them, my life got better even morally, so they don't have any objection to me doing this. And the other piece is, so if you have Christians who just go to church on Easter and Christmas, they're kind of that Sikhs. Like, they just go on these holidays to the Sikh temple. So they can't really be like, hey, what the heck? Because I could be like, yo, what the heck? What is your life? What is your faith? Like, you don't believe in it either. You know, it's just cultural. So they don't. So we've agreed to just be peaceful about it, and I share with them like everything God's doing, and they kind of shrug their shoulders about it. But I was telling Tim, like, for the past 5 years, my wife and I have prayed about moving to India, because it's like what I was sharing about Indians and how they interact and everything's so transactional. And I just want to share the love of God with people who have no opportunity to hear it otherwise. So, and I was telling them, like, if one of you goes there and shares it, it's like, oh yeah, because you're a Christian, you're born into a Christian family. If I share it, it's like, what the heck? What happened to you? Like, why are you a Christian? Because I wasn't born into a Christian family, and almost religion is seen as something you're born into. Like, you don't have a choice. So my wife and I have set a date, and we're moving in September. So we're gonna see how it goes. Yeah, so that's a long answer to how my parents reacted, but they're still reacting to it. Yeah. Any other questions, or? I know you guys might be running late. You're gonna have a siren go again on me.
See that. I'm just gonna get the remote out.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Yeah, how'd your friend from India, how did she do?
Yeah, she, after graduating, went back. She's married to an army guy, and yeah, she's living her life. She's a practicing Hindu. Like, we had a hard time because I was friends with these, like, there's a Muslim and 2 Hindus and me, and we're all from India. And we would kind of stick around and make sure all these Christians stayed away from us and never got any of us. And so they saw it as a failure, like, oh, they got to one of us. But yeah, they were okay. I mean, they weren't gonna. There's no option, but it was gonna be my decision. So obviously, it impacted our friendship. We're probably not the same friends we would have been, but that's okay. I have other friends that I would not have had deep friendships like I do now if it wasn't for Jesus. Because I don't want to talk about sports and weather with my friends. So yeah. Anything else? Any questions?
What do you do down in Mexico the last 3 days?
In 3 days? Man, I had some of the best tacos, I can tell you that. It was a place called Vasante Guerrero. You heard of it?
I never been on that side of the
Okay. So there's a ministry or place called City of Children, and there's a church in Nashville that does a lot of work with them. So there's this 3 guys that were gonna go in the summer, like June or July. So they were taking a pre-trip, like a 3-day trip, to try to set up, and they were also looking at buying a land for an orphanage. So it was a pretty short trip, and so they were willing to take me with them. So we just ate a lot of tacos and hung out with a lot of kids.
You were scared when you was down there?
Not really.
Everybody is scared. They say, don't mess with the police down in Mexico.
Oh, really?
Awful things, they say.
Well, I was only messing with the U.S. police at the border. So yeah. Which I don't want to mess with them again either.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, kind of on that topic, what did you end up doing about your visa once you came back?
So yeah, man. So somehow magically that reset my visa, and I was able to be a student again. And man, I kid you not, every semester the Lord provided thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Every semester. One night I show up at my room, somebody has sneaked in $100 bills in my Bible. One time I'm like, Lord, I just need $60 to keep my phone plan. Freaking AT&T was so expensive even back then. And I'm like, just need $60. I open my bag, there's a note that says the Lord knows our needs, and there's $60 taped. I still don't know who that is. So it was just like this crazy time of my life where I was cool with it. I was like, all right, Lord, if you want to take me back to India, because every semester, if I didn't have enough money to go to school, it would revoke my student visa and have to go back to India. But every semester he kept providing, and we kept, like, my wife and I got married my sophomore to junior year. So one of her decision or like consideration in marrying me was, well, I might have to move to India any semester if we can't afford to, like pay his tuition. So anyways, people somehow would find out about like what was going on and would just be like, hey, this semester will cover everything, or, and then later we met a couple that sat us down at Olive Garden and said, hey, we know you guys have a lot of needs, so every semester, whatever's left over, we'll cover it. So it was just amazing. So yeah, the Lord took care of it all, and I graduated and then started a job in HR. That's what kind of I've been doing for the past 6 years, and my wife's fears are now going to be reality in September because we are moving to India. No, but she's excited. She's super excited about it. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been so fun. And who knows, man, even after, like, if we're in town, like, in the future, it'd be so fun to come and just talk to you. I just am so excited that there's a freaking company that just puts Jesus in the middle of it. Like, what a joy for you guys to work here. Like, people would die to work at a place like that where your management just cares so deeply about this stuff, because it's really not about fire trucks at the end of the day, you know? So it is, like, when you guys asked me to come, I was like, man, I can't think of a better thing to do. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, thank you.
And you and your family are always welcome here. So
All right. Hey, maybe I'll get the girls to look at the fire trucks. Like,
we'll take
this
them
is
for
pretty
a
cool.
ride in the fire truck.
All right.
That's what we do.